Good evening, make them calling to the building committee to order. Item 1 is the approval of the February 1st building committee minutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Kamara, do we have a second? Second. Second, Mrs. Harrington first, there's a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Facilities update. I think Mr. Letourneau is doing his first show. Welcome, Mr. Letourneau.
Thank you.
You notice when it's his turn to do this stuff, it's up there already.
He's running the props for me.
I'm building dramatic tension.
You did.
Yeah, so I'm Jim Letourneau. I'm going to be the interim maintenance manager, so I'm doing the facilities update this week. Dave will probably jump in at budget time. But, okay, so for facilities updates, custodial, we've mostly completed the hand soap dispenser installation. Should be done next week, 100%. Completed training on floor finish maintenance, so we're getting ready to go into the summer. All our new people should know how to strip floors, re-wax them, all the procedures, so we do it right. That's one of our vendors that comes in and teaches the class. They are very, very giving to us. In grounds, I don't have any pictures for grounds, I'm sorry. Last week we took advantage of the weather. The ground was still froze, but the weather was good, so we cut a lot of fence lines, cut trees, got stuff that was hanging over playgrounds, parking lots, anything we could get to with a boom lift and a chainsaw and dump truck. We don't have a chipper, and I couldn't borrow one anywhere, but so we had to haul a lot of brush, and that slows us down. But that all went well. I began my weekly meetings with the athletic director again last week. It's something I started after I took over grounds last year. We have a weekly meeting, talk about what's coming up, what fields I need ready, when they need to be ready, what sports are playing. And that's helping us a lot be ready for spring sports are coming. They're going to happen fast. When the fields aren't ready for them, they're still too soft. We can't work them yet, but we're ready for it. We got all the machines running. Maintenance. We lost a boiler section at Chamberlain. We have multi-section boilers in most of our schools. We lost a section. Wasn't catastrophic. We got the new section in stock. I'm leaving the boiler up for now. In case something happens to the primary, I can still run it if I have to. My contractor that's going to put it in wants to pressure test this section before he does it because he's had trouble since COVID with stuff not being right when he puts it in. So that'll be happening in the next couple weeks. Building pump went bad at William Allen. Again, I don't remember when that school was built. It's probably 35 years old. That pump's out of production. We're finding something that fits in that hole. Until we find a pump that's going to work in that spot, I can't even put a price tag on it. I would assume between $10,000 and $15,000. But I can't put a price tag on it until we find something that'll work. Last Friday night, we had a freeze up at Small Wonders. We think it froze Wednesday during the cold weather. We had a motor fail, a fresh air damper failed open. Because when the motor failed, it didn't seize up like you would hope it would. It freewheeled, and gravity opened the damper. Looks like cleanup's going well. We should be open again on Monday. The remediation crew was in there today, doing the final cleanup, pulling out all the equipment. Saturday, we're hoping to do a final cleanup of our own because we are always a little more picky than the contractors. And then we'll get the stuff moved back in. I'm waiting on environmental testing to make sure, but it got wet and dried so fast, nobody's very worried that there's going to be any problems in there. Stronger Connections grant. Surface Dynamics is going to be doing the window film project. They surveyed the entire district, they got all the material lists in place. Things look really good for getting that project done this summer. Spalding High School band and chorus renovations. So this is the proposed HVAC system. It looks like it does everything we want it to do. We're reviewing it a little bit. And if everything works out and products are available, that project should roll out this summer. So we're waiting on a couple questions on machines, what gas we're gonna run in them. There's some questions on what we can get, so we're gonna see how that all works out. The air quality improvement project. This is the new unit for the Grierson at the high school. Should be up and running, it'll be up and running before summer, actually. Right behind it here is the old unit, which is still functioning, but this one will replace that as soon as the ductwork's complete. There's 3 new RTUs on the roof that service cafeteria, library, and art rooms. Them all got commissioned and up and running last week during vacation, which is ahead of schedule. So all 3 of those areas are running on their new air handler systems, and they should be ready for dehumidification this spring when the bad weather gets here. So we're ahead of schedule on that, and that's good. Electric rerouting took place during vacation. So on the 3rd floor where all the ductwork is, all these wires are up there. So every one of them had to get stretched. So there's a big junction box here, another one down the hallway a little bit with new wire in between it to make room for the new ductwork. That's pretty much 100%. And structural steel upgrades. So this is a hole in the roof right outside the elevator on the 3rd floor for where one of the new rooftops is going. I think the last one, there's 3 up there, that'll be 4. I think that's the last one. And here is the new structural steel to support the new units. You can see here, they fabricated this in place, it was the only way to do it. If you notice how much bigger this webbing is than the original, they needed to do that to hold the load. But yeah, that's, the high school project is going well. And let's see, work orders created from 2/1 to 2/29. We completed 100 compared to 244 before, but that was a 2-month period. Created 131 compared to 356, but again, a 2-month period. So our close ratio was 0.76 to 1 compared to 0.69 to 1, so we did better. Average days from assignment to completion is 7.39, down from 9.99, so we had a good month in maintenance. We got a lot done. Any questions?
Any questions, Mr. Premier?
The spring sports coming up, and obviously with the mild weather, it will be a little bit ahead, but the bathroom facilities feel to be open for spring.
Yes,
Okay, water turned on and whatnot.
we haven't turned the water on yet. We haven't reset the backflows.
Okay.
Still a chance of a freezing day.
I bring it up because typically the rec is locked up and whatnot, and with
Yeah.
bus loads showing up from the opposing teams or parents visiting or whatever, the rec is not necessarily available to.
It takes me about 4 hours to get the bathrooms and the snack shack running.
Yeah, bathrooms definitely, as far as people driving in or whatever, and.
Yeah, so that's.
The rec is under lock and key.
Yeah, so we're, we do it so, we do it every year. We know how to do it. We know where it is. All the parts are on the shop floor. All the new gaskets are made to set the backflows back in place.
Excellent.
We just need the right weather.
Thank you.
clarify, the Spalding Van course areas, if everything goes accordingly, is it gonna be ready for the start of school?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
That's an important
the plan. If it gets started, it'll get finished.
Right.
Again, stuff goes wrong all the time, but that's not, the plan isn't to have it go wrong.
Knocking a lot of wood on that one. Any other questions for Mr. Letourneau? Good job in your first report, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving to item 3, budget review. Mr. Cusi, Mr. Toddy.
Pass the baton, Mr. Todd. It's good to be back up here.
So were you training him to talk about chipper for the future? I'm not sure what just happened here.
I mean, Jim has a mind of his own.
Yes, okay.
So again, this is the CIP, there's 2 columns. Proposed is what we talked about last month. The columns are revised. The upper section bonded capital improvement, there have been no changes made right there. And again, I want to stipulate, I want to make sure everyone understands, the bonded project does not affect the tax cap compliant budget that we're trying to get to. So any cuts made in this upper section have nothing to do with the tax cap compliant budget that we're trying to reach. So we can have all those conversations, but we're trying to get to the tax cap compliant budget first. So maybe we should start in the bottom section. And the cuts that we've made in the bottom section, we heard about already in personnel. You heard about a few of them. Food service equipment was $30,000. We've reduced that to $22,000. What were the 2 hot button items for Fresh Picks personnel working in our district that they would like to achieve is a walk-in cooler at William Allen School. I don't think that's going to be achieved anytime soon. That would probably be part of some future renovation of that building. The other project is a dishwasher at Chamberlain, and the reduction to $22,000 still leaves us enough money to achieve the dishwasher project at Chamberlain, and a little bit left over for something else that might come up. The next line is building security has been reduced to 0. Door hardware has been reduced to 0. Building security is very often camera or A-phone projects. Through the Stronger Connections grant, we're updating the last of our older building access A-phone systems, so that'll all be new equipment in place. And through a Juul cigarette law settlement, we're working on expanding and upgrading all of the cameras across the district. So there's other funding sources to keep us in pretty good shape, so I'm very comfortable reducing both of those to 0. Rack truck and cargo body have been both put off to another year. We can limp by with the rack truck that we have. And cargo body, that's not a replacement of a vehicle, that's an expansion of fleet. Because we've added, over the past couple of years, we've added 2 positions, and we're hoping to create a maintenance vehicle. The people, a lot of times our maintenance guys spend time running back and forth. You know, you go to school, you see what you gotta do, you come back to the shop, you go back and forth. So we're hoping to stage up a maintenance vehicle where people can go out to the school and have all the materials they need. That does not have to be achieved this year, so we're fine cutting that. The 2 bottom items that aren't highlighted is a 1-ton truck with plow, $70,000, and a 0-turn mower at $20,000. And you folks started to talk about this during personnel. At some point, Ms. Kelly is going to start to make projections on surplus dollars for end of year. Maybe that will happen as soon as the April meetings. The specs and bid documents are written for both of those vehicles, so we could put that out to bid. You could tell me to bid it out, I'll do it tomorrow morning, and we'd have some numbers to come back and talk about next month. If we were able to achieve both of those through year-end dollars, we were talking about, I believe it was 6 RIF positions. You found 3 of them, that's 1 more, right? So it's a great progress if we could do that. So I'm hoping you'll give me that direction. And that's about it, unless somebody wants to have some more questions about the bonded items.
Before we, Mr. Kuosmanos, any questions?
I was hoping you can go ahead and put those out for bid, the bottom items.
That's great. I don't think we need a motion for that. That's something I can just do, and that's, you
There's
feel.
a few questions we'll add to it, but you're
Yeah.
on the right path, I think. Mr. Commander, do you have your hand up?
I do. So, Mr. Todd, so looking at the highlighted stuff up there, the highlights is to be removed. The rack truck, does that, the current rack truck have a plow on it? Is that used for?
No,
plowing?
sir, no, this
So-
is a truck we use
It's
just.
a one-ton rack body truck, correct?
It's, more than a 1 ton, right? It's a.
Ton and a half.
Ton and a half.
4,500 type?
Yeah.
It's a stake body with a lift gate.
4,500, okay. I mean, would it be feasible to take that one-ton truck, making the one-ton truck with plow a rack body versus a pickup? You're losing a truck, but is it worth
Please.
exploring?
Can I speak to
Yes,
this?
please.
So, I can keep the rack body running. We only use it in good weather, it does deliveries, it delivers chairs all around the district, because we stock the chairs. And that's the only reason I need it. If I lose that truck, and occasionally have to deliver a chair, I can rent a U-Haul or put it on a trailer. The 1-ton truck is replacing a 2001 Chevy with 100,000 plus and a rapid motor.
Is that a pickup body or a dump body?
Pickup body. It's one of my frontline plow trucks.
Right, so,
If I lose that truck, we have to buy a truck, because I have barely enough trucks to plow the lots.
right. And I guess my thought process is the $70,000 is staying there.
Yeah.
Instead of having $150,000 worth of truck, could you, I guess you double duty that 1-ton truck, maybe up to spec with a plow truck, put a rack body versus a pickup body,
I thought,
and you know, you'd still be under the 150, but still get the truck that
and
serve dual
that,
purpose.
that would probably limit me to a 10-foot body, which really isn't big enough to serve our purposes.
Okay.
We have
Right,
we have
that's why I
we have an 18-foot right now. We can put 10 racks of chairs, and then I'm not saying we do that every day, but when you're moving chairs between schools for like music in our schools, we gotta load one school, that night we gotta pick them up, we gotta get them to another school. They said I can keep the rack body working, and I can replace it with something else for a short time. The plow truck I can't live without.
Yeah, I understand, and I'm not proposing to cut that, I'm just looking at being able to get you instead of.
Yeah, well, and
cutting a
when
truck.
I toyed with the idea of making the rack body a dump bed, and maybe that would be part of, but we got a new dump truck, so I'm not looking to replace that for the next 15 years. You know, a box truck would be great, because then we could move chairs in the rain, but just the rack body's the most reasonably priced piece of equipment to do what we need to do.
Again, but and it serves more of a purpose than a pickup.
Yeah.
That's a great point also about availability. If we are trying to make this procurement, I would have to look long and hard at the availability of a rack, because that's a custom body now, right? It's not gonna come off of Bill Doobie Ford's lot, right? It's gonna have to go somewhere and get fit out, and that might not meet the time frame that we're talking about
Well,
here.
March is the time though, because of town budgets, and I know like Hillsborough Ford or
Yep.
you know, they're typically, they're stocked up because this is town budget time as well. So things get spec'd out and whatnot, but again, you guys, you're working with it, I'm just brainstorming ideas, that's all.
Thank you.
So off of that idea, before we get into finance, where I think this is where we'll finalize these going out to bid now. So the 1-ton and the Z-turn are combined $90,000. The cargo body and the rack truck that are also, that you were on the cut list, 137, that's total of $227,000. Sam, is that in line with what maybe our surplus could afford? Potentially.
Still too early. I feel
So
confident.
maybe more of a conversation to do, my thought was, do we put, if we have the money in the surplus, do we put all four, but granted, rack truck may not be available this time of year, but try to purchase all this equipment now, this year, so we're ready for the future.
And again, Mr. Tardy could bid everything out.
I know.
If he wanted to.
I know, but is it realistic?
It's just a matter of what the board's pension will be for,
Yeah.
for the liquidity of what we have, right?
But I appreciate the cuts that you're offering. Mr. Pappas?
Along those lines, I was thinking exactly the same thing, Mr. Boyer. But also in addition to those items, could we also include the food service equipment that you mentioned at 22,000, as well as playground upgrades? Playground upgrades, I believe, is the wood chips, the 5-bar, or are there also other materials as well? Or is that
There's
just
other
as an
materials.
as-needed basis? Like,
Yes, that's a couple of functions coming out of that line. We just had a bid opening today for a new playground for McClellan. And from when we budgeted for that till today, when we had the bid opening, there's been federal law changes for accessibility on playgrounds for cord-in-place or wheelchair-accessible surfaces. So the wood chips that we all know and love on the playground surface are no longer acceptable for 100% of the coverage. You have to be able to wheel something up to any new structure. So the cost of playgrounds has gone up considerably since we originally budgeted that. So some of this dollars is to provide buffers there. It's also for, you've heard me speak many times over the years about losing a single piece of equipment. The volcano at McClellan comes to mind. That was a $9,000 piece of plastic. We recently did 3 slides at elementary schools that were $3,000 a piece, roughly.
$9,700 for 3 slides.
The playground equipment is exceedingly expensive when it fails. Fortunately, it doesn't fail often, but when it fails, you have to go to the equipment manufacturer to get the right piece of equipment, or else you're outside a design parameter now, and somebody could get hurt.
so without the playground upgrade, maybe we could bid out the food service equipment, at least have the dollar amount?
We could take a shot at that, certainly, to try to get a dishwasher in Chamberlain up and running before June 30. That's within the realm of feasible.
Would we just need to take possession of the dishwasher and not install it?
Well, then you couldn't cut, the whole line includes the procurement of, the whole project is procurement of the equipment and installation. We can't expend funds on the equipment until we have it, and we cannot prepay for installation. You can't get across a budget year by prepaying for labor. She won't allow it. She'd be mad at me if I tried, because I've tried.
All right.
Mr. Cusimano?
If you had to pick one, the rack truck or the cargo body, which one's more realistic that you could have by the June 30th deadline?
With Mr. Cameri's comments in line that he believes rack trucks are going to be readily available, a cargo body is going to be sitting on a lot. I'm sure that can be found.
Would you mind bidding that out too?
I would not mind at all. Be happy to.
Just so we have numbers.
So before I get to you, Mr. Downs, I think at this point, we gotta bring a lot of this to finance, make the final decision on what would go there. And typically what we would say is we'd go to district to say, based off of what you think the surplus options could be, what could we bid out for, or get done this year to offset the budget, which then would go to the next finance committee meeting to finalize that budget. I remember right the process, Kyle, but it makes sense. So we're all on the right path, we just gotta make sure proceed through the right steps. Mr. Downs?
So last meeting, I know was a big topic of discussion, was the units on the building. Are those still on this?
Those are still, this first line is DW HVAC, DW's district-wide HVAC upgrades. It's $220,000 in there. $140,000 of that is 7 rooftop units, assuming 20,000 apiece, at this building. That money is, we've confirmed with the city that money is in their budget to take care of that project. You could advise that we reduce this line by $140,000, or we can go, we have lists of what things we want to accomplish, and if these rooftops are at the top of the list, if that gets accomplished from some other funding source, we can move to the next item on the list that we would like to accomplish, and that's going to be we started to talk about this last month, H&V units and dehumidification at Chamberlain.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do you need a motion for that or not?
That, nothing changes. Did you have any other, didn't you have one other item you had to look into, or it wasn't?
I think we talked about it and, no.
So with that said, and the cuts being offered, we don't have to wait another meeting, we can make a motion to accept the budget right? I'd recommend a finance.
So if you feel.
I'm just
you've
double
gotten
checking
to the
because we
tax
have all
cap
these.
compliant budget, the only issue is you haven't had the third set of meetings.
Correct.
So you have a full board meeting, and historically, we always allowed the next set of committees to happen. And then we added a special finance and full board after those meetings. You know, the finance meeting was one motion, it was to approve the budget of X,
Mhm.
right? Motion passed. To the full board, when they would meet right after that, to hear the motion and accept it. And then, you know, Ms. Kelly and I would be processing the next day all the paperwork that needs to go to the city and letters to the council and things of that nature.
Well, that means tonight, the building committee has to recommend this budget to the finance committee.
To the finance committee,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
just wanna make sure for future. Mr. Downs, you have something?
So that, what about track, is that still in this budget right now, or?
So again, there's in the bonded lines, there are Spalding High School track at $450,000, Spalding High School fence at $220,000, Spalding High School gym and locker room renovation at $725,000. Those, the $450 for the track and the $125 for the flooring are probably pretty tight numbers. We've worked those pretty good. If you approved this money and it was available July 1, there's no way that that's gonna happen this summer with the amount of other things that we have going on. And I'll back up to what we talked about last month. The 5-year committee, the number one goal of the building committee under your 5-year plan is to take a holistic look at athletics at the high school, middle school level and come up with a renewal plan, an expansion, betterment, renewal plan. Taking these 3 projects as they're presented here, piecemeal, doesn't really achieve that, I don't think. And I put them in this budget because they're things we've been talking about, but if you say remove them, I'm not gonna shed a lot of tears. I think what really needs to happen with all 3 of those lines is we need to involve an architect and a civil engineer to do a complete study of existing conditions and then develop the plan for the future. We need to get far more stakeholder involvement, far more input from the public and the community on what that project is gonna really look like and what the needs and wants of the community are around that. So yes, the dollars for the track are there. And let me add one more piece to that, and it's probably the essence of your question, because we've been told by a contractor, this conversation all starts when I try to put another rubber surface on that track, which you're supposed to do every 5 years. The contractor that did it now 8, 9 years ago, several years ago, I brought them in and said, hey, we need another rubber surface. And they said, we're not putting another rubber surface on that. The substrate has failed. That track is beyond its useful life. So we're worried about the track failing. Mr. Letourneau and I have spent quite a bit of time talking about that track, and we both feel confident that if some cracks happen now during track season, we will be able to rubberize them and treat just the crack. I don't think we're gonna have a condition where we lose a track season because of that. So I think that you're in a really good position that you have some time to step back and really explore the 5-year plan and find out what that really is and do it some justice.
Can I follow up on
Yeah, and then
No.
Mrs. Harrington's next.
that? Because I know I talked to a few city council members and they weren't opposed to possibly helping with the track, so I think it's worth a conversation before we move forward with that 450. I think it's worth a conversation with the city before we did that. That's what was my recommendation.
Yeah, that's a very good. On those bonded items, Kyle or Dave or Sam, if we're looking at maybe doing the study, the engineering piece, do we want to leave it as is and then we can reposition after July 1, the line items, how that we want to allocate the funds differently, and then there'll be a reduction, obviously? Or do we want to just eliminate and have a new line item? What would be easier at this point in the budget game?
I think you'd have the ability to do that if the funds were there.
Yes, if the funds are there, we can reposition.
Ms. Kelly, am I
I don't know if
mistaken?
I'm fully following you.
So if we leave the budget as is, knowing that really the plan should be, let's do a design phase and an architect involved and really have a full plan drawn up, which is gonna cost money. So instead of spending the track fence and what was the other piece on there?
A locker
The
room.
locker room, there's a lump sum. We're not gonna spend the whole lump sum on an engineer or architect. But we can reallocate those, part of those funds to pay for that engineer in a bonded, knowing that we are going to then have a big project later on.
So, yeah, can I jump in here? Yeah, so, yeah, you can certainly pay
that.
bonded dollars for engineering, and you could do that out of any one of these lines. What, if we do the big study and the big picture, and we come up with a bigger project, now you've got these lines, and where we're standing up saying it's gonna cost this much. By putting that in the budget, we're saying it's gonna cost that much. And then we're gonna come back and say, well, we thought about it, and it's gonna cost a little bit more. So maybe we consolidate those lines and call them something else about study, so that it's the small ask to
District-wide.
define the big ask. Instead of a big ask, then define it, and then a supplemental big ask.
Yep. I understand.
Yeah, there's also restrictions with engineering too. You can only bond it, I believe it's 10 years versus 20. It has to be bonded within a shorter length of period from when it's done.
And do you know how much money we should potentially be looking at? Because right now that's 670, and then you got the,
1.395
for engineering.
for those three projects total.
Well, I know that
Yeah.
one there, but what
If
we
you-
need for, if we want to do a district-wide sports study.
If we called it district-wide athletic improvements and put $100,000 in there, you would have more than enough to fund an architect, a civil engineer, and some dollars left if there were a failure on the track that we needed to deal with in short order.
Does anybody want to make that motion? Mr. Harrington?
I'd like to make the motion to condense those three lines to be the engineering architecture fees for an athletic study.
Second.
District-wide.
District-wide,
With the dollar amount?
100,000.
And we're gonna call it district-wide athletic improvement?
Study, improvement,
Great.
study.
Don't put the word studies improvements. Okay, so we have a motion by Mrs. Harrington. Mr. Downs already seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Any other questions or comments on the budget? I know finance is where we'll get into some conversation. So do we have a motion to move the building committee's budget to the finance committee? Mrs. Harrington, you can name it.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kamiri. Any discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that said, item 4 is the 5-year plan. I think we just covered that with the band and chorus updates, as well as the focus for a bond item to look at our field study. Is there any comments from the group? Excellent. Anyone from the public wish to approach the building committee? Seeing none, I'm going to forego reading the disclaimer and close public comment. Item 6, other. Is there anything other? Maybe Mr. Pusey, Mr. Toddy, or Mr. Letourneau? Seeing nothing. Item 7, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kamiri, a second by Mrs. Harrington. All's in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.